Duke has been to a bowl game 6 of the past 7 years, but can they keep up that success in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
If you have watched our videos before, you know how much respect I have for David Cutcliffe. He enters his 12th year with the Blue Devils and has done a phenomenal job making Duke relevant in the ACC. But 2019 could be one of his toughest coaching jobs yet, not just because of the very difficult schedule, but also because of the amount of starters they lose on the offensive side of the ball. Duke just returns 4 starters on offense, losing their star quarterback in Daniel Jones, the number 6 overall pick in April's NFL draft. They bring in Quentin Harris, who is a solid dual-threat quarterback, who did have playing experience last year when Daniel Jones was out with an injury, but he loses his top 4 wide receivers. So they're going to have a completely new core of receivers going into 2019. They do have Deion Jackson at running back, who rushed for over 800 yards, but this is going to be a complete overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. And Cutcliffe, usually known as a quarterback whisperer, usually known as an offensive-minded coach, I would expect this offense to put up some decent numbers, but not nearly as big as they were last season. On defense, though, that is going to be the strength for Duke, and that is going to determine whether or not they can make it 7 bowl games in the past 8 years in 2019. They returned 8 starters, including a very, very strong defensive line and secondary led by Dylan Singleton and Marquise Waters. This is a defense and secondary that allowed just 199 passing yards per game last year, so under 200 passing yards per game for the Duke defense last season. And they're going to need a big game out of their secondary in week 1 going up against Alabama in Atlanta. And that is, of course, not the way any team wants to open up their season, especially facing off against an angry Alabama team that fell 44-16 to Clemson in the national championship game. Last time these two teams met, all the way back in 2010 at Duke, they fell 62-13 to the Crimson Tide, and I can see that score being very similar in 2019. Even though this game is at a neutral site, I do not think Duke has any chance to beat Alabama. You never want to face off against an angry Nick Saban team. This team has Tua Tagovailoa, one of the best wide receiver corps in the entire nation with Jerry Jeudy, and a defense that, yes, continues to lose multiple starters and multiple stars every year to the NFL, but always returns and does seem to be doing better under Nick Saban. So this game is going to be very tough, but it's going to be a good test for this very young Duke team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They get an easy win over North Carolina A&T, and then they go on the road to Middle Tennessee. And you notice that we didn't put an automatic W there, giving them an automatic win over the Blue Raiders. And that's because Middle Tennessee is one of those Conference USA teams that can be kind of sneaky and pull off an upset here and there. And with this game being on the road, especially with a brand new quarterback, especially trying to get that chemistry down with some new wide receivers, I don't want to automatically give them this win because the Blue Raiders could pull off an upset here. But they do lose their star quarterback as well, and Brent Stockstill. I don't see Middle Tennessee pulling off this upset. I think Duke gets a win on the road over a decent Group of 5 opponent. They get a much-needed bye week, sitting at 2-1, going on the road to Virginia Tech. And if you look, this stretch here from September 27th to October 26th before their next bye week is going to be key in whether or not Duke makes a bowl game in 2019. The schedule, as I mentioned, extremely difficult. Getting Alabama in the season opener, getting Notre Dame later on in November, and of course facing a bunch of ACC teams that will continue to improve. But we'll start here with the game on the road against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, like Duke, coming off a bye in this game, and this one also coming on a Friday night. Last year, Duke fell to Virginia Tech at home 31-14, and that was with a Virginia Tech team that struggled a lot and a Duke team that I thought was fairly decent. This was a Virginia Tech team that barely made a bowl game last year, losing their star quarterback in Josh Jackson and a defense that was very uncharacteristic, being led by Bud Foster. This year, it's going to be quite different. They will be led by Bud Foster once again as defensive coordinator, and they return 10 starters on that side of the ball. Ryan Willis, who came into this game against Duke for his first career start, lit this Duke secondary up, and I expect him to do it again in 2019. This game being on the road, Virginia Tech coming off a bye does not spell a win for the Blue Devils, and they fall to the Hokies. They come back home, though, against Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech, 2 very winnable games for Duke. Unfortunately for Duke, they have lost the last 4 games to Pittsburgh. And last year, they allowed 484 yards on the ground from the Panthers. But the good news for Duke, despite that losing streak, despite the horrible performance by their rushing defense last year, is that Pittsburgh loses Quadre Olison and Darren Hall, their top two 1,000-yard rushers last year. So with this game being at home, with Pittsburgh having to kind of figure out their new identity, probably going to relying a little bit more on Kenny Pickett at quarterback in that passing game, Duke gets a win over the Panthers. And I think by the time you hit this bye week, I think Quentin Harris, if there was any doubt or if there were any issues, he will have resolved them. David Cutcliffe will have resolved them, and his offense will start to be clicking just a little bit. And as we've said before, over and over and over again, David Cutcliffe's teams usually overperform. People are down on them, don't expect a lot. He usually gets them to a bowl game, maybe 6 or 7 wins, and surprises some people. Maybe he can do the same in 2019. They stay at home facing off against Georgia Tech, and I'm going to give Duke another win here in ACC play, facing off against a brand new head coach in Jeff Collins. And this is a Georgia Tech team that's going to be switching from the option offense we saw under Paul Johnson to a pro-style offense that Jeff Collins is bringing in. So a brand new era for Georgia Tech. This passing offense, this pass-happy offense for the Yellow Jackets could test this secondary for Duke. But as I mentioned, they have a very experienced secondary. I think this is where you see a very big step up and a very big game from this Duke defense. They're able to shut down Georgia Tech, who might still be having some growing pains in year one of the Jeff Collins era, and they get their second straight victory. So right now they're sitting at 4-2, going on the road against Virginia. Here's the thing, Virginia, like Pittsburgh, has won 4 straight over Duke. Virginia also is a big-time ACC coastal contender in 2019. They will be led by Bryce Perkins, a very dangerous dual-threat quarterback who's certainly going to test this Duke defense. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Virginia will have one of the best defenses, not just in the ACC, but in the entire nation, especially in the secondary. So this is a game where you could see Deion Jackson being, kind of being the leader of this game, because I could see Quentin Harris struggling against a very dangerous secondary that the Cavaliers will have. Duke might have to resort more to the run, and if Virginia makes Duke one-dimensional, it will be an easy win for the Cavaliers, and I think that's exactly what they get. I do believe they pull off the win over the Blue Devils, and Duke will fall on the road to Virginia. They stay on the road, facing off against their rival in North Carolina, who also will have a brand new head coach, somewhat brand new, and Mack Brown, who will be making his second stint at North Carolina in 2019, coming out of retirement to coach the Tar Heels once again. A lot of people have high hopes for North Carolina in 2019. They returned 14 starters. They don't think it's going to be a rebuilding year. They're happy that they're getting an experienced coach, a legendary coach in Mack Brown, but it's not going to be enough to get a win over Duke. I believe the Blue Devils go on the road and beat a North Carolina team that I think is getting a little too much hype. And when I mean hype, they're talking maybe 5-6 wins, bowl eligibility. I think that's pushing it. I think that's a little too much. I think Duke goes on the road and gets a key win over their rival in North Carolina. And also to mention, they have won 3 straight against the Tar Heels. They're going to make it 4 straight in 2019. They get a bye week before they return home against Notre Dame, a team that made the college football playoff last year, a team that returns a very solid quarterback in Ian Book and some of his top wide receivers. This Notre Dame team might not be playoff material this year because of the difficult schedule. They have to go on the road to Georgia. They have to go on the road to Michigan. They have to go on the road to Stanford. So if they lose a couple of those games, they will be out of playoff contention. But they're still going to be extremely tough to beat. Even though Duke's coming off a week of rest, even though Notre Dame might not be playoff material here, I do not think they're going to be able to get the win over the Fighting Irish. They're still going to be a tough team for any opponent that goes up against Notre Dame. And Brian Kelly will be able to get the job done. They fall to the Fighting Irish despite beating Notre Dame in South Bend just a few years ago. They stay at home facing off against a Syracuse team that is absolutely the real deal. Syracuse, they lose Eric Dungy, and everybody believes because they lose their star quarterback that they're done. That 10-win season was a fluke, and Syracuse will go back to winning maybe going 4-8. It's not going to be the case. They bring back a very experienced offense. They bring back a quarterback in Tommy DeVito that is absolutely the real deal. And this defense for Syracuse is very, very dangerous and not getting the attention it deserves. Even though this game is at home for Duke, it's going to be extremely tough for the Blue Devils to upset the Orange in this one, a team that I do think can win 9 or 10 games again in 2019. They fall to Syracuse, and that is their second straight loss and their third in their past 4. They just need one more win to get to bowl eligibility, and maybe you can come here against Wake Forest. Unfortunately, though, let's keep this in mind. Last year, I believe Duke had a better team. I think the 2018 Duke team was better than the one that is going to be in 2019. In the season finale, with that Duke team, they lost 59-7 at home to the Demon Deacons as 10-point favorites. This Wake Forest team is better than the one in 2018. This Wake Forest team gets to host the Blue Devils in 2019. This Wake Forest team will once again beat the Blue Devils, and I believe it's going to be their third straight loss going into the season finale against Miami. Duke falls to the Demon Deacons. Maybe not by the score of 59-7. Maybe not in that big of a blowout fashion, but this Demon Deacons team is going to be tough. Dave Clawson's teams have surprised me the past couple of years. They have a dangerous quarterback in Jamie Newman. If this team can stay healthy, Wake Forest will once again be a bowl team for the fourth straight year. They close out the year against Miami with a bowl eligibility on the line. They win, they go. If they don't, they stay home for the holidays. And this is a game that I really do feel like they could pull off an upset here. I do feel like they could pull off a win over Miami, who's going to be probably looking ahead to a potential berth in the ACC title game. If they can win 9 or 10 games, they have Tate Martell at quarterback, and if he lives up to the hype, if Dan Enos gets him to where he needs to be, this Miami team will be so dangerous in 2019 because the defense, despite losing some starters, will remain strong because Manny Diaz, their previous defensive coordinator, is now their head coach. Duke took care of Miami on the road last year 20-12, but it's a different year. It's a different Miami team. They're under new management, and even though Duke is to host this game, even though they're going to be playing their hearts out to try to get to their 7th bowl in the past 8 seasons, it's not going to be enough. The Hurricanes are going to be too tough. Duke falls to Miami to finish the season 5-7. And there have been years, the past couple of years, where I haven't been super high on Duke, where maybe I have not predicted them to go bowling, or maybe haven't predicted enough wins for them. I've said it before, how much respect I have for David Cutcliffe and how he usually surprises us and how he usually overachieves with his teams. When you count them out, David Cutcliffe surprises everybody. So when you're looking at this schedule, maybe you could see a win for the Blue Devils against a Wake Forest, maybe a win against Syracuse, maybe a win against Miami, as I mentioned. But this schedule, like I said at the beginning, is so difficult. Playing 2 teams from the college football playoff and playing a much improved Virginia Tech team, a much improved Miami team, a Syracuse team that's going to be tough again, and a Virginia team that's looking to win the Coastal. It's not going to be an easy year for David Cutcliffe. One of his toughest coaching jobs yet, but if he can get Duke to another bowl game, he's going to once again solidify himself as one of the greatest coaches in Duke Blue Devil history. So we're going to have to wait and find out, but right now, 5-7 for Duke in the 2019 season. Guys, as always, thank you for watching us here. Please go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can go sign up for our newsletter, and for just $30, you can sign up for our expert picks, where you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I promise you, that's an opportunity and a deal that no college football fan can pass up. Go join countless others that have already signed up and join our team today. Go sign up for our expert picks at gridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on The Gridiron Expert.